Welcome to Human or Athlete Best Bits Part 2. Following on from last week's episode, we're going to continue showing the best bits from the other half of the guests and their conversations that have taken place on the show. I'd like to introduce our first guest on today's episode, Tivongi Rushesha, also known as Tiv. What a guy, full of jokes, full of life. He finds so much more to football than off the pitch, such as, cooking with his family, spending loads of time with friends, and, he's a big part of Ballers in God and all these other things that he does to find so much joy and to find so much life, just aside from his job as a footballer. He's recently, over the last season, had a, really difficult ACL injury. And if there's anyone that's going to bounce back, if there's anyone that's going to get through this, both mentally and physically, it's this guy.
I'll continue to slip up, but it's the fact that I'm actively trying, if that makes sense. And with change happening, there's something that someone said in one of the prayer groups with Ballers in God, where it's like the best way to preach the gospel is through your actions. So the best way to teach someone how to have the right virtues, how to be open, how to be compassionate, is to be that yourself, and kind of let people see how it is, if that makes sense. So I think as long as you're trying your best to be like that, you're not going to be like it all the time, but as long as you're always actively trying, then that's all you can really do.
Yeah, the best, and obviously you're showing this as well, the best thing of doing that is with the awareness to go, this is who I want to be, this is my, whether it's through something from religion or an intuition, that awareness to call yourself out if you're not backing it up, that awareness to know in the first place that, I wasn't myself in that situation. And also the awareness to have set down the rules and not necessarily the rules, but the boundaries to go, or the values that you have. Like, that's something that I quite frequently do, is write down my values and memorize them.
Yeah.
And the important thing is having the awareness to constantly kind of recreate and let go of them and not having them structured in place. But it's that awareness around that I think is huge, because without that you don't know who you are and where you're going and whether you're slipping up in the first place all the time. And like you said, through your actions, you're not going to learn otherwise. And if you don't take that step and you don't try and be yourself and you don't try and put yourself out there, and I was obviously the famous quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. If and you learn probably so much more from slipping up and from how you deal with things when you deal with them wrong, to know that this wasn't right. And it's that intuitive feeling that I didn't back myself up here in the values that I say and the values that I preach. That wasn't right. So
and the fact that you're writing down the things that you find important to yourself is really important, which is something that if you want to achieve something, you have to do, because another famous quote, how can you score if you don't know what goal you're aiming for? So I don't know if that's the exact quote. I think I might have made that
a Tim original.
You get the message. But it's really important to kind of assess yourself and be like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I do. And just because we're all unorganized people by nature. So you just need to kind of organize it for yourself, write it down, and then once seeing it on paper, it kind of helps you kind of instill it in your mind. And I think there was something that, even with the slipping up, there's something I heard this morning from a Denzel Washington speech, where it was it felt like motivation, but it kind of applies to this, where he was saying he doesn't like the idea of having something to fall back on. You should always be looking to fall forward. So if you know what you want to do and you kind of fail, as per se, you're going to learn from that quote unquote failure. And that allows you to kind of fall forward, kind of be like, okay, I know what I did wrong here. Then you continue getting better. And that applies to how you are as a person, and everything that you do in life. That applies to whatever profession you want to take, a hobby that you want to carry on about, falling forward.
Roberto Hoshia, a really close friend of mine, and we filmed this incredible 2-part conversation series, and it was a conversation full of so much authenticity, so much courage and honesty for the way that he shared his story. And that story he took us through his dreams to become a footballer, his big ACL injury that kind of really, took him off that route of becoming a footballer, and how he had to rebuild his life through rebuilding that ego and identity of being a footballer. And it was all about him becoming the person who he wants to be, with the same values, the same attitude, the same beliefs and drivers, just without that additional label of I am a footballer. And it was a truly beautiful conversation where we go so deep into, both our perspectives on life and football, and it was an absolute pleasure to be a part of it.
Looking back now at everything, in the place that you are, talking about everything we've talked about, how do you now see the ACL injury? How do you now see the eating disorder? How do you now see the suffering that you've gone through and the big life changes that are so difficult for anyone? How do you now see them?
It's blessings. As blessings, for sure. It's as deep as this got, and as we brought up a lot of problems during this podcast, didn't we? Mm-hmm. But it's definitely brought more positives than negatives. I've met the most incredible people. I got to be involved in groups and circles that I never would have imagined to be involved in. It's definitely been a massive stepping stone. Both of them. The ACL in its own way. The ACL got me involved in a completely different environment that I would have never ever thought to be a model. I never thought about that. Which then modeling got me so many other opportunities, which I would have never thought about. Then the eating disorder just got me to open up with other people that were going through the same thing, and
open up to who you are,
open up to myself, realize, develop skills that are so important, like taking a step back and evaluating what's happening, realizing what's happening, being aware. That's one of your biggest things. Just being aware of what's happening, accepting what's happening, and then dealing with it. I couldn't be any more grateful for what's happened, and it just made me realize and not plan for the future, but be aware that whenever it feels like it's the end of the world, you're not seeing the door that just opened in the back. You just have to walk. You just have to walk a bit further to see that open door that was closed before.
I always remember Rocky saying, "If you can look up, you can get up."
That's a good one. You love your quotes today.
I'm on it.
You're on fire. That's amazing. But yeah, no. Again, at the time when I got injured, there was no way I could have pictured. It took me way too long to realise that another door might have just opened for me.
I think for everyone listening right now who's going through the problems, who's going through big changes, because obviously this year has brought about so many, that hope and that light you're bringing them right now, in the way that you're seeing that and you're talking about these things, is incredible. And I like, hopefully people can connect to that and understand to that. So, I think you should be so proud of yourself, because I know I am of you, because I've seen you grow, I've seen you, adapt into this, and just, it's incredible for me, and to have seen this and experienced this journey with you. And then also, it's like when you said that end of the world thing, for people going through that right now, is that these feelings, these emotions, these situations, they will come and they will go. And that's one thing about anger, sadness, depression, anxiety, is it will always come and go, even happiness. And for those that are in those situations, living proof right now that you've gone through. I really
appreciate that, but it's
like not even like in like that way, but it's like you're going through big ups, big things that people are so scared of in the football world, the sporting world.
Yeah.
And you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
How powerful that is.
Ruben Sammer, an incredibly humble and driven guy. He talks us through his time at Chelsea, what it was like, what the environment was, and then how he left Chelsea and his time at Sunderland and different other clubs on trial, and how he had to find a new club to play football at the highest level. And it's an incredible testament to who he is as a person, that he set aside any privilege, any expectations of other clubs, because he came from Chelsea, and put his head down, worked hard on himself as a footballer, both physically and mentally, but also did the networking, put himself out there as much as possible. And that humility is honestly so inspiring. He also scouts for Chelsea now after taking responsibility to get in touch with them, and has big dreams in his football career, both on and off the pitch.
I come from the other side of football, and there's more to it. So I've kind of accepted that what happens in football happens in football. If I end up not making it, then I've sort of come to terms with thinking that's not everything. So the fears of that have gone completely, I'd say. And I guess for me, the biggest fears I always had was the fearing of failure. And that's almost given me that inner drive to sort of do well and be successful. And I sort of flipped that from almost football to what I'm now doing outside of football. I've been putting a lot of energy into that because football for me now is just more of an escape and enjoyment. And although I'd love to make it to the Premier League at one point, I mean, no dream's ever too big, but I think being realistic and setting shorter term goals, and I think for me, just sort of being able to still play football and earn from football, and then also do what I'm doing outside is probably the perfect goal for me at this time. Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, would you say how have you kind of let go of those fears of failure in football?
I think probably just what's happened this summer, really. I kind of had to adjust and get to grips with sort of letting my ego go a bit and letting these fears step aside, because at one point I didn't have a job at all. So it was any opportunity after that was I was just grateful for. So I guess having that sort of rock bottom of not having a job and seeing what it's like, you're sort of at the bottom of the hierarchy, you're working your way back up again. It sort of just let me lose all those fears and stuff completely. It was starting from scratch. I had nothing to lose. So everything I feared that I did have to lose, I got to that point and I was okay. And I knew it was only going to be better from this point onwards. So it was just more excitement than that sort of anxiety and fear.
Exactly, like you face them and you're still there standing, and like you can only go upwards from now. Yeah. And I think that's an incredible place to be, because you have that underdog mentality. In a way, you're unstoppable, and to look at that perspective of football's just enjoyment and you do what you love, I think is amazing, because in a way, and there's loads of people, talking about it at the moment, but it's combining that self-help, whatever, being present, to approaching football, which are complete contrasting mental environments. Yeah. And what you realize is that when you're present and you're focused on enjoyment, that's when you play your best.
Yanni Nicolau, a great friend all the way out in Australia, and he brought the motivation, the inspiration, and a whole lot of energy. We went back and talked through our time at Salford, and how one of the big ways we connected was all the motivational videos and stories and quotes that we grew up watching, listening and reading. And we talked about how much that's impacted us as who we are, and probably impacted, the drive we both have to go out and succeed and be the best we can be. We also went deep into the power of breathing, also known as breath work. And we looked at stuff like the Wim Hof method, or doing it on your own, or just simple meditation, and how it really is undervalued and completely unknown in the football world and even the sporting world as to how powerful it can be, both physically for your lungs, but also mentally, as it's kind of a real deep version of meditation. And he talks us through his routines before games, before trainings, always surrounding that breath work and how important it is. So please check it out, and check out obviously breathing and breath work if you're interested.
I was really pushing myself like beyond my limits, trying to just suffer through pain, just going runs every morning, 5 a.m. I did that 5 a.m. club, and going through that runs, just when you feel that moment of pain, David Goggins says, like, there's ways to just not think about that pain and think about past experiences to help you keep going. Mm-hmm. And once you're past that point of pain, you're only at like 40% of your potential. So yeah, I just really pushed myself, and yeah, each day I got fitter. So I was doing. I didn't touch a ball as well for like 2 months. I was running, so I got to a stage where I was really fit. But yeah, that book really helped me here. So yeah.
When going back to those past experiences, it's interesting to me to know: are you going back to the ones where there was like pain and like people have kind of doubted you or whatever, or are you going to the moments like the cookie jar moments where you're like, this is what I did, this is who I am, this is why I should be proud, this is why I keep going. What do you go back to?
I take everything, actually, what you said, like little bits and pieces out of everything. But there's obviously that main cookie in the jar that just drives me to the top, is just like, yeah, all that suffering I went through with like deaths and all that, or passings, that just drives me into just getting past the pain.
Yeah.
And like you said, just little doubts here and there. Someone saying you can't make it, you can't do this. Yeah, those do drive me a bit. But yeah, I look for that big cookie first, just to get past that point.
So if you're okay with it, kind of go deeper on that cookie, and obviously, I'm sorry to hear that there are deaths and obviously going on, but how do you see that for yourself? Like, do you have like, what do they call it, like a mortality motivation? Is that something, do you believe that kind of life is short, or how does that motivate you?
Yeah, like you said, life is so short, so you have to appreciate all the moments like you get given. So you just have to live in the present. And yeah, going back to that past, I just think that you don't live long on this earth, so you gotta put everything into it. So that's what I'm saying. I need to reach my full potential as a person, what God has created for me. There's a list, and whatever he's put on that list, I want to reach that top to the highest potential of like what he's created me. So yeah, that's what I want. So that's what I think about.
Pedro Montero, a brilliant coach and also a brilliant guy. His generosity and compassion for the players and people around him is truly humbling and inspiring. He also completely shocked me with what he talked about, especially the power of curiosity, and how that is a foundation, and how it creates hard work, and how it also creates inspiration and motivation. And that curiosity breeds the attention to detail, and thus the growth and the improvement and the success that comes with it. It was a truly fascinating approach to curiosity and to football and life. And honestly, since that conversation that we had, I've sat back so many times and tried to embody more of that because of what he taught, and especially the power of words and that he carried across in this podcast and in this conversation. So please enjoy what he's got to say and go check it out.
On the bones. And I think it's more about the process and more about, one thing that I've sort of come to realize a little bit is you just need to be super present in every single moment that you have, because what else do you have in life? You have nothing else. You can plan, you can think, of course you can, but you have to be really present in the moment and really just enjoy the moment, because anything could happen to anyone at any time with you have absolutely zero control over. So what is the point in getting stressed about it? It's the thing, it's that conversation then with people and purpose. What is the purpose? If you really strip everything back, and if you strip everything back and you just go for the pure scientific terms, there is no purpose. What is the purpose? The only thing that we have is the moment, is the time right now, and that's the only thing that you can control. So whether you're planning a session, whether you're speaking to your mum, your dad, whoever, that's the only thing you have at that time. So that's where you need to give the full focus. It's the same in terms of the players. I'm sure, of course, they'll think about the games and think about that, but if they don't think about what they're doing now, that is so far away from them. There's not even any point thinking about it. We've known lots of boys when you were with us, and lots of boys always say, I want to be a player, I want to be a player, I want to be a player, but they don't work backwards from it. So you want to be a player, so what do you need to do in order to get there? And then it all comes back to, right, what are you doing right now to do that? Are you recovering? Are you eating rubbish? Are you training properly? Are you researching? Are you being curious about it? Whereas I think if you sort of strip the ego off it and you're just curious about that thing, then that's where I think the hard work comes from. That's the hard work, and that's where you just enjoy the process, because the success for you isn't the end result. The success is the everyday.
Mm-hmm.
It's the being in that environment every day, training, hard work. And I think there's a famous quote from Kobe Bryant who says something quite similar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the success, because there's going to be a moment in your life where you can't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the results are great, but I'm pretty sure most players will miss being with their teammates, enjoying training every day. That's what they miss.
Yeah.
You have those memories of the great moments, the great games, etc., but you miss the day to day.
Jim Stevenson, a great friend over the last 3, 4, 5 years. We've shared many a pre-season together or a Christmas Day death workout. I've learned so much from him over the time that we've been close, and not only through his words and our conversations, but mostly by his actions, his dedication, his attention to detail, and his positive, focused approach to life and to sport and to everything that he does. In our conversation, we really delve into who he is, and his honesty is amazing to watch, because you just he opens up about everything. And what is so important in who he has become and the journey that he's gone through is letting go of football, actually, and letting go of that identity around it and stepping into this new identity that he's rebuilt from a blank piece of paper and gone, this is who I want to be, this is who I believe in, this brings me the joy, this brings me the drive. And he's gone out and got it, and it's inspiring to now see that he's going back into football with just out of enjoyment and just out of what he wants to do, not in that it's a need or that it's a requirement, but that he can manage that with an incredible family, an incredible business that he's created from scratch. It's a pretty incredible story, and his honesty and his energy is captivating.
I was really, really busy at the time. I've created busyness in my life again.
Yep.
And I was busy before with football and all these other things. And now I was just busy coaching lots of clients, one-to-one, football. I was doing everything, which was great in terms of, income, business success. But I just sort of covered over all of my actual fears, doubts, worries. And I remember just taking pen to paper and I don't necessarily journal deeply daily. I journal, but I don't necessarily, I write when I feel I need to write and when I need to offload, because I'm quite a communicator verbally. So I get a lot of my things off my chest, talking to partner and all of that. But I think it's important to journal, and I just wrote how I was feeling. Tears, crying, and I just realised I'd lost, not lost everything, but I'd lost who I was still didn't know who I was, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'd lost it in football and I still hadn't found it. So that was really, really hard in terms of when I actually went there to recognise that I no longer had the thing that I was known for. And I realised it was all I'd always felt fulfilled because I was the footballer in hyphenations. That was what gave me my identity in a way. So then I more went around the route of, rather than growing a business, I'm going to rebuild myself. And that was when my journey really started, I think, when I started to rebuild myself again.
I think it's also beautiful in that kind of rock bottom, people would call it, obviously, is that you then realize that you're still okay. The worst is, like my game, the worst has happened, I'm still here. I'm still standing, I'm still okay. And then even what immediately came to mind when you talked about that, when you kind of realize that I still haven't attached myself to a new identity yet, I'm still kind of lost. It's that's such a beautiful space, because then in a way that like you said in that 2 months, and there's no attachments to who you are, there's no whatever, and then in a way you become unstoppable because of that. Because there's no identity that says, oh, there's fear attached to this or whatever. And that becomes like a crazy space. And I think, that happened naturally. But so many people are trying to create that space where there's no ego, because that's obviously a big part of, Buddhism and everything. But it's so crazy how you naturally went through that. Was like, whoa, I don't have this anymore. Kind of
There was nothing to lose.
Exactly. And so,
which is how we want to live life, right?
Exactly. And so when you kind of realize and you look back at that time there, you know, you're completely fulfilled through nothingness in a way, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And that's just a crazy kind of concept. And if I always just see things like that have happened and all these different things, or experienced it in moments myself. And it's like that they're the crazy places where you could do anything.
And when I say I was in tears and I was like lost, there's a part of me that set all of my like goals in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
As in, and when I mean goals, I mean like who I wanted to be. Like I say, I was in flow through nothing, because I was like, what do I have now? Which I'm grateful to have actually been able to go to that place of, you know, I had lots around me, but in my mind I had, you know, virtually, I felt like nothing again. Which is when you put it that way, I've never actually looked at it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, what an incredible place to have actually got myself in.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. How did you then, from nothingness in a way, like from that blank slate, rebuild yourself?
I think firstly I got clear on, as I mentioned to you, I had like some awareness of what I wanted or what I felt like. That always evolves, but what I felt like in that moment I wanted my life to be like, as in, and I don't mean what things I wanted, and I just mean like how I wanted to feel in myself and how I wanted to feel around others and what I wanted to contribute. So I just got really clear on what I wanted to create through Overpower, through who I needed to become to be that person, who I wanted to attract as a partner. I got super clear on all of that.
Yeah.
And then I just took action on all of it, as in just waited to attract it. I just manifested it, and I honestly, that came through reading and Tony Robbins and all of those stories about how if you decide what you want, you can go and get it. I know that's a really simple way of looking at it, but I literally decided what I wanted, and just took action, asked the right questions, got people to help me where I needed it. Went hard, the work ethic thing, went hard on getting those things that I wanted.